The world turned in for the high-stakes showdown in Alaska, but hopes for a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war were left hanging. Despite bold claims of progress, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin wrapped up their much-anticipated summit without sealing a deal. Trump called the talks very well, boasting of headway after hours of negotiations. But his own words said it all: no deal until there is a deal. Later, Trump made a flurry of calls briefing Zelensky, NATO's Jote, and European leaders on the post-summit spin. Zelensky is now set to visit Washington next Monday, but with no concrete steps announced, it's unclear whether the summit nudged the war any closer to a real resolution. So, what did the Alaska summit really achieve? Progress or just political theater? That will be our discussion today on this edition of In Depth. My name is Helen Hamalawi. Stay tuned. At a much-anticipated summit in Alaska, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin reached no agreement to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Despite hopes for an immediate ceasefire, Trump acknowledged that they had only made some headway and stressed there is no deal until there is a deal. According to the New York Times, the two leaders displayed a strikingly cordial and friendly rapport, with Trump praising his fantastic relationship with Putin and Putin calling Trump a dear neighbor and inviting him to Moscow. The newspaper noted that the meeting marked a significant diplomatic gamble by Trump and was widely viewed as a victory for Putin, who has faced diplomatic isolation from the West over the past 3 years. Putin emerged from the summit without any public commitment to halt his military actions in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Trump reaffirmed, or rather refrained from blaming Putin for the conflict and omitted any mention of sanctions that he had threatened earlier, highlighting a surprisingly warm tone between the two leaders despite the ongoing war. On the other hand, anxious Europeans, including Ukrainians, can let out their bated breath for now. As the New York Times reported, the Alaska summit did not result in Trump conceding Ukrainian territory to Putin, at least not yet. Nor did it restrict European aid to Kiev. The newspaper highlighted Trump's post-meeting remarks, in which he effusively praised Putin and once again shifted responsibility for a deal onto Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Russia is a very big power and they are not, Trump said, bluntly underscoring the asymmetry between the two nations. Zelensky, meanwhile, recently announced plans to meet Trump in Washington on Monday. Yet the inconclusive Alaska talks, with more negotiations looming, expose a deeper European dilemma. According to the New York Times, Europe lacks its own strategy to end the war, much less to defeat Moscow. Instead, its leaders scramble to adapt to Trump's shifting positions, desperately trying to hold him to red lines that safeguard both European, rather Ukrainian sovereignty and European security. Delving more into this, joins us from Moscow Mr. Sergei Markov, former advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin, and from London, Mr. Nicholas Williams, former NATO official. Welcome to Q News, both gentlemen. I'll start with you, Mr. Markov. Now, very good day to you. How do you view the outcome of the summit? Was it just political theater, as reported by some newspapers, or does it actually bring peace closer?
I think those international media who is writing about triumph of Vladimir Putin, they overestimate the reality. They try to attack indirectly Donald Trump and to show Donald Trump as weak politician who is made too many concessions to the Vladimir Putin, and they want to push Donald Trump to the more tough and hard position against Vladimir Putin. As to the result of the summit, it was a positive result. Everybody could see that both leaders has a quite friendly relationship, and Western media want to show that Putin not isolated as big victor of him, but Putin isolated only by his enemies. And if European countries who are enemies of Russia hate Vladimir Putin, it regarded as a very good indicator by Russian people. So good words is first. Secondly, very intensive negotiation about peace deal in Ukraine. It's very important that discussion, the point of discussion, moved from discussion about ceasefire, which is, we believe, not quite realistic, but to the real peace deal with real resolving of the reason of such crisis. It's a very important shift of discussion and very important result of this summit.
Mr. Nicholas, welcome to Q News. How does Europe view the lack of ceasefire deal after the Alaska summit? And what are Europe's next steps to support Ukraine in light, of course, of the summit's inconclusive outcome?
Well, I think I agree with Mr. Markov. There was substance to this summit, but the substance hasn't been revealed publicly. And as Mr. Markov says, there were several indications, particularly in Trump's Fox News interview, that Trump and Putin were on the same lines in some significant areas. Trump said that the land issue was they largely agreed on. Mr. Putin in his press conference said, of course, Ukraine must have security guarantees. So I think we have an outline of a deal, provided that Zelensky agrees with it. And this is the problem. If Trump has accepted more or less Russian arguments for a lasting peace, then the Europeans will have to adjust their attitude and their policies in favor of this peace process, which is now underway. Otherwise, Europe is faced on its own supporting Ukraine without the United States.
Mr. Markov, now, how does Russia interpret the so-called progress claimed by both leaders despite no ceasefire deal?
Ceasefire impossible because Europeans kill ceasefire by different methods. First of all, Russia already signed two ceasefire, Minsk I agreement in 2014 and Minsk II agreement in 2015. With guarantees of European countries such as French and Germany. And this ceasefire has been sharply violated by Ukrainian regime and guarantees from France and Germany. And leaders of France and Germany directly told to the media, "Oh, it was not serious, it was secret. Our goal was not to have real peace, but to just to take more time for the Ukrainian army to be armed and to be more produced and so on." And after this, who can trust to Europeans? It's one. Second way of killing ceasefire by Europeans is direct tool of Great Britain and France leaders now that on the second day of ceasefire, they're going to send the occupation corps of own militaries to Ukrainian territory. 10,000 of British soldiers, 10,000 of French soldiers. British should be should occupy Kiev and north of the Ukraine, and French should occupy Odessa and south of the Ukraine, and additionally 30,000 of another European militaries. They want to send it. How Russia can agree with ceasefire if Russia knows for sure that after this European troops will come to the Ukraine? Of course, this is impossible. That's why more realistically to talk about a more stable general peace deal. Same time, I don't believe that peace deal possible with Zelensky. Ceasefire impossible because Europeans kill them, and a peace deal impossible because Zelensky kills them. Because if ceasefire, so if peace started and war over, it will be a re-election in Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky, extremely unpopular right now. People hate him because he's stolen more than dollars, as everybody believes, from Western aid, and because he responsible for the killing half of the millions. Because on April 2022 in Istanbul, Vladimir Putin suggested to Vladimir condition of peace deal much more better than now Ukraine has. So Zelensky will try to block any movement to the peace. That's why I am not optimistic about this. But with some exception, what Zelensky needs? Security for him, for his family, and for his friend. That's why I believe that if Donald Trump wants to get Nobel Peace Prize, Donald Trump should just buy peace from Zelensky.
Okay.
Donald Trump should give him $1 billion and another $1 billion to his friendly families, and to give him some island where they could be secure without any revenge from the Ukrainian families who are their soldiers.
Okay.
It looks like fantastic, but I think it's very, very serious for the contemporary world. Give $2 billion to Zelensky and one island in the ocean.
Okay. I will go back to Mr. Nicholas now. I want Mr. Nicholas to comment on what Mr. Markov said. He said that ceasefire is almost impossible, and I want to know from you now, European leaders also seemed relieved that Trump did not concede Ukrainian territory, but is no disaster really the benchmark for success? What does that say about Europe's leverage in this war, and is a ceasefire really impossible?
The Europeans have little leverage. They've been arguing for a ceasefire, but as Mr. Markov says, the Russians will not accept a ceasefire if the Europeans, during this ceasefire, are supplying Ukraine to get stronger. The Russians are relentless and ruthless in their objectives, and they will pursue their objectives until the conditions are right for them to have what they call a lasting peace, which resolves the underlying factors for the war. the problem with that attitude is that there's no scope for compromise. They're expecting Zelensky or whoever replaces him to concede that Russia is de facto in control of huge swathes of Ukrainian territory. And the Europeans are now faced with the problem: do they try and continue to persuade Trump that Mr. Putin is untrustworthy and Putin is humiliating him? Or do they accept whatever Putin forces on Zelensky? Because I do believe Mr. Trump will actually walk away if the Europeans and Zelensky don't agree on this process of peace. So it's a very difficult situation, but the Europeans will try to influence Trump as much as they can. And the UK, as Mr. Markov said, announced yesterday that they're ready to send troops to Kiev after a ceasefire.
Mr. Markov, now the meeting ended in under just 3 hours. That was far shorter than the planned. Was this a sign of fundamental disagreements, or did both sides achieve their key objectives efficiently?
No. It's connected absolutely with another thing. According to Donald Trump plan, as you understand it, it was 3 options. One option, if he met Putin, sees that Putin making tricks and that Putin doesn't have real peace process. That's why Donald Trump was ready to stop in 1 hour and or even in half an hour and say, Mr. Putin, goodbye. There are no chance to make the deal with you about peace. It's one option. Another option, quite positive, is they agree about ceasefire or peace deal or something very serious step, practical step, immediate practical step towards the peace. After this, Donald Trump was ready to say, look, it's time for lifting sanctions of the United States against Russia. So let's have another part of the meeting where we invited financial ministers and some who connected with economy. So let's discuss right now how to get away anti-sanctions from the United States. This second scenario didn't happen. First scenario, negative, didn't happen. Second scenario, very positive, didn't happen. What happened is third scenario, it's very intensive discussion, very important positive steps forward, but not a final decision about stopping of fighting. That's why Donald Trump decided, okay, we will not new sanctions, we will continue negotiation because this negotiation is quite good, but we will not lift our sanction against Russia right now. That's why second part of the discussion we cancel.
Okay.
So it's normal.
Yes, I have a question regarding the sanctions to you, Mr. Markov, because I don't think that Putin is very much concerned about the sanctions because he is already dealing with China and India for alternative options. But I can get to this later. I will go now back to Mr. Nicholas. Trump called Russia a very big power and dismissed Ukraine's stature. How should Europe respond to this comparison, which seems to reward Russia in a way?
Yes, exactly. Europe has been trying to point out and reinforce the idea that Russia is a rogue state. It invaded a fellow European country against all international law, against all principles of European security. And effectively, Trump has brought him into and treated him with huge respect. It brought him out of the cold. I think the Europeans were more comfortable with Biden and Obama's conception of Russia, which was a regional power of no great global significance. The Russians hated Obama for this characterization, but the Europeans felt that that's where they would like Russia to be. Now, Trump has burst through this policy, this idea, and elevated Trump to a global player, which I think the Europeans feel very, very uncomfortable with.
Okay. Mr. Markov, back again to the issue of the sanctions. Do you think that Putin would be very much concerned about the sanctions? Also, Putin mentioned eliminating the war's primary causes for a lasting deal. Is Russia signaling that regime change in Kiev or NATO rollback are still non-negotiable demands?
Yeah, first about sanctions. Of course, sanctions are negative. I also, for example, lost money because of a sanction. I lost a lot of money because of sanction, and many other people, Russian people, lost. But nevertheless, if look at the result for economy, economic growth of Europe 1%, economic last year, economic growth of United States 2%. Economic growth of Russia 3.5%. So it's a Russian economy in much more better condition. Then about second sanction against China and India. Who believes that it was really work if Donald Trump will say 100% tariff for China and India? It's an economic war, and it will destroy the trade, international trade of United States. So it's quite not realistic.
Yes.
So sanctions is it's about, and your question also a question about this future trends. I want to stress very important thing for your understanding and about Europe and so. Europe say this invasion has no reason. Putin say, look, we should discuss real reason of our of this invasion, and we should resolve this reason to go to the peace deal. But Europeans repeated many times, no reason. Reason does not exist. So it means that Europeans even don't want to discuss the main issue which Vladimir Putin arrives. This is block a peace process. That's why I am not optimistic about this. Europeans just ignoring the reality. And frankly speaking, I think that European countries now interesting about this war because domestic issue. Not Great Britain, but France, French President Macron. He's interesting to have this military, I would say, a quasi-war with Russia for getting opportunity to put his main political opponent, Marine Le Pen, to be arrested. And to falsify elections to keep power somehow by his hands or in hands of his friends. Yes. And German leaders, they're interesting to have some kind of this provocative quasi-war against Russia for the prohibition of main opposition party, which is an alternative for Germany. That's why European leaders interesting by own money, but own political capital to this Ukrainian war. Ukrainian people die for the opportunity of French President Macron to put his main opponent, Marine Le Pen, to the prison.
Yes. Mr. Nicholas, Trump praised Putin but blamed Zelensky for the lack of a deal. Is Europe prepared for a scenario where the United States actively pressures Ukraine into concessions? Mr. Nicholas, can you hear me?
That's a very difficult question. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Nicholas.
Hello?
Okay, I will try to go back to Mr. Nicholas, but now with Mr. Markov, Trump implied a Putin-Zelensky meeting could follow his talks in Washington. Is Moscow prepared to engage Kiev directly, or will it insist on U.S.-mediated terms?
Yes, of course, Russia and Vladimir Putin are ready to meet Vladimir Zelensky. I also want to stress that when we are talking about regime change, we're meaning that this terror system of political terror should be dishandled. All prohibition of Russian language, which is a native language for the 80%, 80% of the Ukrainian population, all this prohibition should be get out. And political repression against Orthodox Church should be stopped. So, but this regime change doesn't mean that Zelensky should go. Zelensky can stay. Even profitable if Zelensky will be in power, because Zelensky could be replaced by hero general Mr. Zaluzhny, and Zelensky for Russia much more better than Zaluzhny, because Zelensky had better relationship with Trump. Zelensky, he used some drugs. There were a lot of rumors. He is responsible for the corruption. He is responsible for the killing of Ukrainian people. So he is a weak political figure. That's why it's good for Russia to keep Zelensky on this position. Okay. And to take part in his negotiation, it's reasonable because but only in one scenario. If Zelensky agree on 90% on the conditions which Putin and Donald Trump agree. But if so, Zelensky should come and say, look, General, I agree, let's correct this, let's say this, let's put this, something like this. But if Zelensky deny these conditions, no reason to invite him.
Okay. Mr. Nicholas, I hope you can hear me now. I was trying to ask you, Trump praised Putin but blamed Zelensky for the lack of a deal. Is Europe prepared for a scenario where the United States actively pressures Ukraine into concessions?
As I said, as I was saying, this is an important question. I think if Zelensky concedes and has guarantees from Mr. Trump that he will, the United States will continue to support Ukraine financially and perhaps giving a security guarantee, then the Europeans will, if Zelensky concedes, then the Europeans will fall into line. But if Zelensky says, no, this is unacceptable, Russia is the aggressor, Russia has committed war crimes, and Putin is indicted by the International Criminal Court, the Europeans will say, no, we support Zelensky and not Putin, because Trump's pressurizing of Zelensky means he's pressurizing him on behalf of Putin. Yes. So, and this is a dilemma for the Europeans.
Yes, I get your point, and I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas Williams, former NATO official. Thank you so much. And also Mr. Sergei Markov, former advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Thank you both for sharing your valuable insights today with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's episode of In Depth. My name is Hana Al-Hamilawi. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates on Q News, the top stories coming up next.